Hey guys, welcome back to another reading update. I've just recently finished 4 books, 3 of which I mentioned in a recent vacation vlog that I put up, and I'm going to go ahead and discuss what I thought about those. The first one up is Blue Exorcist, number 18 by Katsue Kato. Not going to talk a whole lot about this one, basically because it is number 18 in a series. I did mention within my vlog recently that it is one of my favorite series. I look forward to a new one every time. It is just a very well-developed series, really interesting characters. Each character gets a chance to kind of have their moment in the sunlight, you might say. There's at least a little bit of an arc or a feature of each one of them, so you get to know their background and family life and things and what that character is really like. So you really get to know the characters very well, which I really appreciate. And I love the artwork. It features a lot with these 2 brothers here, Rin and Yukio, and just overall a really, really great action type series and character study and just really great artwork, as you can see even by that cover there. So I highly recommend this if you're looking to start some kind of manga series. I'm by no means an expert on manga. There are other channels if you're looking for info on manga, but I will tell you that that is one of my favorites, so that's one of my recommendations. Next up, I read the book The Bunker Diary. This is by Kevin Brooks. It's about a young man by the name of Linus who one day wakes up in a bunker. He was helping some man and all of a sudden felt the chloroform on his face and passed out. When he woke up, he's in this cement bunker, no windows. The only access in and out of this bunker is an elevator, and there are 6 rooms in the place. And more than a day goes by before a second person shows up, a young girl. She's like about, I think, 9 years old, 7 or 9 years old. And each one kind of arrives via the elevator, kind of in some state of unconsciousness. And a similar situation, they encountered somebody, next thing you know, they woke up there. And they don't seem to have any kind of thing in common. Eventually there will be 6 people filling up each one of these rooms. And the story is told via Linus's diary entries, and each heading is sort of, got a date on it and everything like that. But after a while, he begins to doubt the time that is passing. He is watching a clock up there, and he starts to do sort of internal counting. And it seems like someone, whoever's put them there is sort of messing with the time, so they've lost all track of actual time passing that they are there. But they are provided with supplies as requested. They have to kind of write a note and request certain things. Some things will be denied. Obviously, they're not going to be given a phone or any access to outside contact. And at times they are punished if they try to do anything in terms of escaping or blocking any of the cameras and things that are hidden up in there. And some of these punishments are quite severe. The one thing I felt about this as I was reading it is I missed that there were multiple points of view. It's great getting that insight from the one character, but I wanted to know more about what the other characters were thinking. One of them, particular woman that's in here, you didn't really encounter her very much. Most of the time she just spends isolated in her own room, kind of freaking out, but she's just like shut off from everybody else. So what's going on in her head? It would have been interesting to see diary entries from the other characters. I also had an issue with the way the diary entries were presented. It just didn't feel like someone writing in a diary. It felt more like a narrator telling the story, but in a first-person format, which lends it to a different kind of scope than you would see in like a diary entry, like, writing, off the cuff, off the top of your head. Just it had like, sentence structures and quotation marks and like so-and-so gave me an exasperated look. Why would you write that in your diary? It's not how I would see someone making diary entries. It just didn't give that feel to it. I definitely had a Saw-like feel. If you've seen that movie, I've seen the first one. Those movies tend to kind of disturb me. It's just a little bit weird. But in those movies, sort of like the people had to do something to the other people. Something similar is suggested by the person who kidnapped them through a note. But I won't go into any more detail about that. But it did have a creepy feel to it. I wouldn't say that I like the way everything closed or ended. Overall, it probably bothered me the most. It's a tough read. It's not all happy endings. Yeah, overall, I gave it like 3 stars. Like I said, there was things that I would have liked to see different in the way it was written. At times it was kind of moving and surprising, but overall, yeah, I was a bit disappointed in the ending of it overall, so I only gave it like 3 stars. Next up, I read Mary Peters by Mary Ellen Chase. This is apparently the first in her main novels. I've gone on Goodreads and seen there's like at least 2 more. Not necessarily a series in terms of, continuing characters, but in terms of the overall setting. It's main around the end of the late 19th, early 20th century. In this particular one, we're following one character by the name of Mary Peters. She was raised on a ship, actually born and raised her early part of her life on a ship. Her father's the captain, and she sails with her mother and her older brother, John. It never really went into detail as to what type of ship it was. I'm assuming it was a merchant ship. It was a sailing ship, and at one point she's having a conversation with the first officer, and they're watching like these steamships off in the distance, and it's sort of at the advent of this change in sailing, advent of a new type of industry, and the first officer is not happy about that, about seeing this change, and it discusses a lot about that within the pages of this book, and how the social and economical society around Maine is changing, turning almost more towards tourism, and how it's just not something that he's happy with, at least. But she's still quite young as this book opens up. Her brother is about to go off to the village to enter the academy. Prior to that, both Mary and John were schooled by their mother on board ship, and including the first officer, who was like a former teacher or so, helped educate them. But once they reached the age of around 15, they return to village life and enter the academy. And that's how this book is sort of broken up. It begins, it's like 4 sections. You begin with the sea, then the village, and then there's a section called land, and then it concludes with the sea. So the first part with the village is when Mary finally goes off to the academy. And at this point, it's like just before, when the sea part, the initial section ends and the next one begins, a sort of tragedy takes place. And it seemed to something that, after a while, became a bit of a reoccurring theme, I guess. Right before a new change in, from the sea, the village, the land, there was another tragedy. It almost became, I was anticipating, okay, what's going to happen this time? So there's an overlying reoccurrence of tragedies within her life that she has to sort of overcome, and it kind of plays a part in diverting the path of her life. The section that's labeled the land seemed to feature more on her brother's life. He never took to the sea. He actually wasn't born at sea like his sister was. He was born on the land, and he has a passion for farming. He ends up inheriting his grandfather's farm, and that's where that whole section seems to focus on. But of course Mary is there as well in some form, and it seems like in some cases it wasn't always so much about her life, but those around her and how their lives impacted hers. I thought the writing was very beautiful and very descriptive. Like I said, the predictability of the tragedies, or the upcoming tragedies, it was easily to oversee it and stuff like that. But overall, I thought it was like very beautifully written, and I think I would have. I kept waiting to see like what is her path going to be, what is her overall desire in life, and it just seemed almost sometimes it was pushed off to the side until kind of near the very end. But yeah, for a find, like I said, I found this at a little free library in a neighboring town. I'd never heard of it before. This was published like in 1934, and it was just a wonderful find. That's the lovely thing about either used bookstores or thrift stores. You never know what you're going to find, and I just stumbled across this particular book, and I really enjoyed the read overall. And I'm seriously considering picking up some of the other ones in this main kind of theme. So yeah, that's Mary Peters by Mary Ellen Chase. And then the final book was an audiobook that I listened to. It's Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, or Far from the Maddening Crowd, as I kept saying, I think, in my recent videos. I don't know why I kept mispronouncing the title. This is my first Thomas Hardy novel, and I had mixed feelings about it. The first half of the book, I was a little unsure of whether I liked it. At times I was a bit bored, but taken as a whole, once I got to the conclusion, the second half and the conclusion of it and the way everything kind of wrapped up, overall I looked back on the book and I said, overall I did enjoy the experience of reading it. It follows a young woman by the name of Bathsheba Everdeen, and I have a hard time saying her first name. She's around in her 20s or so. She's sort of friends with a man named Gabriel Oak. He's a farmer who owns his own farm, and he actually proposes marriage to her, but she says she doesn't, really love him. She likes him, but she doesn't love him. And so nothing kind of comes of that proposal. And then as the story progresses, she ends up inheriting a farm from her uncle, and so she herself becomes a landowner and everything. And things kind of go bad with Gabriel's farm to a tragic event, and he has to seek employment elsewhere, ends up working on Bathsheba's farm. So they become back within each other's orbit. But there also seems to be two other suitors to her hand in marriage. We have another farmer, Farmer Boltwood, and then there's a Sergeant Troy, kind of a, I don't know, rakish kind of guy. I didn't like his character either. But it was a strange kind of book for me. I felt like Bathsheba, she's kind of represented as a strong character. At least once she becomes a farm owner and she knows her responsibilities and things like that, she seems a very strong character, but she's got a lot of flaws. She makes a lot of stupid mistakes. She does some silly things, particularly with regards to a Valentine card to this other farmer, and it sets off an awkward chain of events, and just a whole lot of other things that she does that are just kind of not well thought of, sometimes impulsive. So I had a little trouble with the character and kind of getting connected with her. My favorite character was definitely Gabriel Oak. He's the most responsible character within the pages of the book. He's, saw to the overall care of the farm, and eventually more other farms besides his own, besides her own. And I like his overall nature, even towards Bathsheba. He seemed protective of her, watchful of events around her, always sort of looking out for her, even though that she never really came out and professed her love to him in those early days. So, and there's other events that take place throughout, and kind of the situation that put him in, at times awkward, trying to keep your feelings hidden, because it's awkward kind of having those feelings now for someone who employs him. But I liked his character overall. I thought he was a really good guy. And the writing is very descriptive. At times, like I said, it could be a little bit heavy-handed, and I got a little bored with some of it, and then other times it was quite beautiful, describing the country. I think it's like the Wessex country. And I guess this is one of the first ones he sets in that area. So I haven't read any of his other ones. I'm not really sure where to go after this one. If you have read Thomas Hardy and you're a fan, let me know, what you think would be the next best step to read with those. But overall, I give this one 4 stars. Like I said, I had trouble with the first half of the book getting into it, but then I felt satisfied at the end. That's the best way to describe it. More satisfied than, say, how this one ended. But yeah, overall, it was a good reading experience. I enjoyed all these books that I came across, and yeah. So on to what I'm currently reading. The audiobook I've chosen at the moment is Every Heart a Doorway. I'll have to hold it like that so you can see it. It's by Shannon Maguire, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I'll just read you the synopsis of it. And it says, no solicitors, no visitors, no quests. Children have always disappeared under the right conditions, slipping through the shadows, under a bed or the back of a wardrobe, tumbling down rabbit holes and into wells, and emerging somewhere else. But magical lands have little need for used-up miracle children. Nancy tumbled once, but now she's back. The things she's experienced, they change a person. The children under Miss West's care understand all too well, and each of them is seeking a way back to their own fantasy world. But Nancy's arrival marks a change at the home. There's a darkness just around each corner, and when tragedy strikes, it's up to Nancy and her newfound schoolmates to get to the heart of the matter, no matter the cost. I've just started listening to this, and I've heard some good things about it, but I don't really know much detail about it. But I'm looking forward to trying it out. And for a physical copy, I felt like just getting into something really meaty. This is pretty meaty. This is a book called The Company of the Dead, and it is by David J. Kowalski. It's some 750 pages long. I've just spotted this cover a couple times at work, and it just kept drawing me back. I mean, if you'll take a close look at that, that is the Titanic docking in New York. So obviously something is off there, because this is what really happened. It docked on an iceberg. So what we have here is a time travel book. Describes time travel, airships, the Titanic, Roswell. He says it builds a decidedly original creature that blends military science fiction, conspiracy theory, alternate history, and even a dash of romance. That's the blurb by Publisher Weekly. I'm about 100 pages in, and it's pretty good so far. It says, can one man save the Titanic? On March 1912, a mysterious man appears aboard the Titanic on its doomed voyage. His mission, to save the ship. The result of his efforts is a world where the United States never entered World War I, thus launching the secret history of the 20th century. Then April 2012, Joseph Kennedy, great-grandnephew to John F. Kennedy, lives in an America occupied on the East Coast by Germans and on the West Coast by the Japanese. He's one of 6 people who can restore history to its rightful order, even though it may mean his own death. So it's pretty intriguing so far. Like I said, there's an alternate history going on here. The United States is totally screwed up, more so than it is at the moment. And yeah, I'm finding it very fascinating. Anything focused on the Titanic always draws my attention. So definitely looking forward to getting more into this meaty book here. So yeah, that's my reading update for now, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.